And here we are, folks. Good evening, Sasquatch Experience. Sean Forker, James Baker, Vance Nesbitt, and Henry May down there. And I still didn't get it right this week. Simulcasting on Facebook, YouTube, and Baker's middle finger, apparently. But we got a great show tonight. I'm going to start bringing them on here one by one. We have Seth Breedlove in the green room standing by. But before we bring Seth on here, let's get a little hello in. Vance, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, and I know that a good portion of our country is in the middle of living in the, let's say, in the Great White North, huh? It seems to be a lot of wintry, blizzardy crappiness going around. So
yes, and by
I'm well though.
Snow.
We have
snow.
Yes, snow, but we're staying warm, and it's all good.
And then we're going to go even further south. We're going to go down to Henry May, who's standing by. He said it's really cold down there. I think he said it's like 50 degrees. So he had to put a sweater on because he's shivering.
No, more like single digits. And that's the low. That's going to be the low for tonight, too.
He has no idea how to handle the cold, folks. So somebody go down there and cuddle up with Henry May. I see James Baker's trying to say something. James, how you doing tonight?
Henry, I'm not huddling with you for warmth. It's just not happening, bro.
All right. All right. And on that note, let's get Seth in here. Seth standing by. There he is. Seth Breedlove, our filmmaker.
Hey.
In there.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Does this sound terrible?
No, it sounds better than everybody else that's on here besides myself.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. No, that's it. I'm out.
I'm underappreciated. I get it.
Yeah, so poorly misused. And we got a great show tonight. Seth, I'm glad you joined us tonight, man. It's been a while. It's the first time you've been on Sasquatch Experience.
I know, and I can't be on the show without mentioning the hours and hours of listening enjoyment this show gave me when I used to work medical billing, and I listened to the old school Sasquatch Experience interviews and discussions with Don Keating and all those Bigfoot luminaries from the early aughts that have kind of dropped off the face of the earth lately.
Yeah.
I probably
offended
someone. Yeah.
Sadly, because that's happened a lot lately.
Yeah.
A lot of our good research friends and even, the experts in the field aren't with us anymore. So we got to kind of foster in the way for new experts and new legends there, Seth, and you're kind of doing your own part in that journey.
Am I? What is that? What am I doing?
Well, you got these great documentaries coming out. On the Trail of Bigfoot that's been out, the first two parts are great. I just got a sneak peek of this latest one, and I have to tell you, it's probably my favorite so far. I think you've told a great story. But you present real, everyday people that are the heart of this research and the heart of this quest. Why the hell did you even get into that whole mess? What made you want to do the stories like that as opposed to the spooky Bigfoot scary stories?
I mean, there's certain people that are on really bad Travel Channel shows who believe that that's all I do. So there are those people out there, guys that might have worked with Bobcat Goldthwait who have really, really trendy, cool, hipster Bigfoot podcasts who feel that I don't know how to tell any sort of story other than those really straightforward, spooky stories. But that's another story for another time. But yeah, I think it was honestly my interest in all of this grew from listening to shows like Sasquatch Experience, which I've said numerous times. And so my enjoyment of the paranormal was formed by podcasts. And if you will remember, there has been a trend in podcasting that came about after I had already started making movies like Minerva Monster, where everything became about spooky stories. And so when I got into all this, it was because of shows like yours and, listening to like Jim Harold's show and the shows that were more about maybe a little bit of the research side of these topics beyond Bigfoot. And so that's the stuff that drew me in, was like, the methodology behind the investigations and research and trying to actually find answers to these subjects rather than solely look into, like what can we find another Bigfoot story where Bigfoot rips someone's head off and throws it across a field or something, and so that's like my interest in all of this was formed through that side of things, through the human interest side of it, rather than the how spooky can a story be. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's basically it. I mean, I really went off on a tangent there, right out of the gate about really bad Travel Channel shows, and I apologize to no one.
What got me into this whole thing was, what was that podcast? I can't remember. Sasquatch.
Can't forget about Sasquatch.
No.
Your own little mark on the podcast world, Seth.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was part of that whole, I guess my whole baptism into this stuff was at least, I mean, you can see so much of small town monsters in Sasquatch even early on. But as I keep jokingly calling On the Trail of Bigfoot the Journey Sasquatch the movie, because to me it's very much like it's me and Mark running around in the woods together and commenting on aspects of the Bigfoot topic that interest both of us. So yeah, I think you can kind of trace the through line for sure for me, especially now in films like On the Trail of Bigfoot the Journey, where I have unfortunately or fortunately been forced to sort of be the guy that's in front of the camera telling the story, as opposed to being able to hide off camera like we do with the films. This series does not allow me that opportunity. In this case, I have to I'm the one leading it. And originally that was because of the approach to the storytelling. Like On the Trail of Bigfoot, the first series was entirely shot and edited by me. And since in a lot of those cases, it was just me alone in a place with a camera, I had to be the guy leading the story. So it made sense. Now it's kind of become a thing where, because of that first series being told in that way, now that is my role in On the Trail of Bigfoot. But because of that, I think you're seeing the entire subject of Bigfoot framed through my eyes, rather than, as maybe a more objective storyteller like I typically am. I think a little bit of my outlook on all of this seeps into On the Trail of Bigfoot, maybe more so than it does some of the other stuff we do.
Well, I think it's a very fresh take. As somebody that's seen it, at least this latest installment, and I told you before we came on the air, I really feel like I'm getting your story, and through your story, I'm getting these ancillary stories that connect to it. But it's getting me to learn you, and if I didn't know you as I know you, it would bring somebody more intimately into your thought process. And I really like it. It's different. I think if you're looking for a scary Bigfoot story, I don't think any of your movies have been that. You've had some good elements, but nothing like scary.
Well, I mean, there's definitely, we don't shy away from the fact that the horror community has really embraced our stuff. And, I think because of the fact that the horror community has embraced it, we definitely have managed to exist the way we do today. So I wouldn't shy away from the fact that our films definitely tell spooky stories. But I think that at the end of the film, there's so much more to any of our films than just the scary Bigfoot or scary Bray Road Beast or whatever it is that doesn't interest me, and I don't think it interests most of the crew. just telling like, let's see how scary we can be. I think all of us are more interested in, you know, the subtext of what's going on. And I'm always like, right now I'm really struggling with Rougarou because we start shooting in 3 weeks, and I've spent the last, you know, week and a half really trying to wrap my brain around what is this film about. And some, you know, most people would say, well, it's about the friggin' Rougarou, obviously, but you know, that's not really the way I approach this stuff. I try to dissect what we're about to get into and find an angle that will appeal to me. With Rougarou, I think it's starting to be the fact that, you know, we're dealing with a part of the country that is seeing 18 miles of wetland disappear every year, either through natural or man-made causes. And I think that's really interesting, that you are seeing the deforestation on such a huge scale in that part of the country. And how does that play into the local legends there? How does that play into the legend of the Rougarou? Does it at all? You know, so I'm always trying to dissect what we're getting into and find something in it, something a bit bigger than just like the spooky Rougarou story that's going to be at the heart of the film.
Yeah, your stories never, you know, you never take away from the overall story when you do address these spooky tales. They don't become the, you know, the core of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're transitioning between films, do you find it hard to stay focused or stay on track? Like, you've got a very ambitious schedule this year. How are you managing the Bigfoot stuff with the Rougarou stuff, and how do you not let it overlap?
You can't. The way our schedule is, you can't get away from that. So you really, it has become more and more difficult to. You can do it, and we do it, but it's becoming more and more difficult to wrap your brain around the project you're on pre-production for, while still staying completely invested in the project that you are in post-production on. And in some cases, you've got a movie in pre-production, a movie in post-production, and you're shooting something, which is what is about to be happening, because we're about to be doing filming for Rougarou while doing all of our planning for On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery, and I will be in the midst of editing On the Trail of UFOs, Dark Sky. And we're also shooting On the Trail of Hauntings. It's an ongoing, so we're shooting it whenever we feel like, which has been, there's been, you know, during January, we shot 2 episodes of that and 1 in November. So it's been kind of like, I mean, sometimes we're shooting like 2-3 episodes at a time. We've also just launched a publishing arm of Small Town Monsters, which we haven't even announced yet. My wife will get mad if she knows that I just said this. But we filed that LLC this week. So that's going to be a big announcement coming up. And then we've got, Beyond the Trail, which is a new series launching on YouTube that Alexander Pedikov is going to be making, which I'm describing as kind of like bushcraft and Bigfoot. So that'll be kicking up here fairly soon. And then we also have something else that On the Trail of the Lake Michigan Mothman, which is something that we're in the process of starting to try to get off the ground as well. So it's become increasingly difficult, because what I like to do is to really be at a point where I'm done with editing the previous project, so I can fully invest myself in the pre-production for something we're about to shoot. So typically what I would like to do with Rougarou is to go into my screening room here and sit down and watch like hours and hours of Hammer horror and Louisiana based, you know, movies, and just try to like understand the culture of the place and really start getting myself invested in it in that way. That is not the reality I'm living in. So what I'll be doing is, whenever I'm at home, when I should be relaxing, I'll be sort of investing myself in the research angle for Rougarou, and that'll be the next 3 weeks. And it's been this way now since last year. I mean, last year we created like 6 hours worth of content last year as well, because we did, on the Trail of UFOs is 4.5 hours, 4+ hours. Actually, it's like 7 hours of content last year. So we had UFOs, which clocks in at 4+ hours. We had Mark of the Bell Witch, which is close to 90 minutes. And we had the Mothman Legacy, which was 70 some minutes. So for the last 2 years now, I'm starting to get my bearings as to how to function this way, but it is definitely not, it's not the way we used to do things. When we were making the Mothman of Point Pleasant and Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, I was able to just disappear into those stories and have no distractions, and that's just not the way we stay afloat. And I mean, some of that gets into a whole boring discussion about how we are just frantically, not frantically, but how we're year by year, the rules change because of the major platforms. And, I mean, 3 years ago, I bragged about the fact that we didn't have a distribution company and probably never would. And now we're in bed with 1091 on a, case by case basis. And the fact is, like, we wouldn't exist if 1091 hadn't come along when they did. Literally, like, we would not be here right now because of COVID and the way this last year went. We probably would have gone under at some point last year. So yeah, it's a year. Every year we're changing the game and figuring out how we're going to function now this year. And every year we run a Kickstarter, and you have it seems to get more and more successful to everyone watching it on the outside, and you get a lot of comments like, "Wow, you're going to buy a Rolls Royce?" And there was like a guy left a comment on the YouTube channel this past week saying it was disingenuous of us to leave the Kickstarter running since we had already hit our goal. And I'm like, that's not how Kickstarter works. I can't really just shut it down. So it's like, and I mean, we're making 4 feature-length productions this year, plus 3 YouTube series, and actually, there's going to be a lot more happening with YouTube. Before year's end, there will be multiple STM series running on YouTube. We just haven't quite figured out, what they're called and what each one is going to be. So I don't know. That was the most rambling. Henry May's fallen asleep over there.
No, I was just going to say, within the last 10 minutes, all you actually said is, yeah, I'm busy at work.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But the thing is, though, is you're growing as a company, and you're putting out good content. So anybody who says, well, he's getting too much money, doesn't understand what the work involved behind it is. Probably 90% of that money was spent before you even put up the Kickstarter, and you're just trying to recoup some of your money back. So if somebody doesn't like that you're getting extra money, then they can suck it up and not give.
Yeah. I can't. Sean was talking, but I couldn't understand what he said. So
Sean, your mic's off.
Yeah, I muted myself for once. I was very concerned where that was going to go when Baker said you can, and I had to.
That's what I thought. That was exactly what went through my head.
Hey, I have been really good lately. I've learned from my argument with Bobcat Goldthwait. There are just moments where you have to be quiet.
James Baker, folks, a professional troll, doesn't care how famous you are, will find a way to make you feel as stupid as you're coming across. He really has a gift for that.
It's a knack.
It is. It's a knack, definitely. But Seth, like Baker said, I've been part of your Kickstarter since the beginning. I've always believed in small town monsters. I'm not wearing a small town monster shirt tonight. I feel bad about that. That's for
what is that shirt though?
That's a Uwari.
Oh, nice
hoodie.
Well played, Seth.
Considering we got this great project we're doing, You know,
No,
bands and
I
knives.
can't, like, from my angle, all I can see is the very top of it. So
Yeah,
like,
there's a Bigfoot on there, buddy.
that's cool.
It is cool.
Who did your artwork?
I don't know. I bought it on Amazon. I don't even
Oh,
care.
okay.
Somebody just got free publicity from me,
All right.
all 12 viewers. You know, we're not making that big Small Town Monsters viewership. You know, the owner and founder of Small Town Monsters likes us, but nobody else does anymore. I blame Henry for that. I really do. He's really dropped the ball lately, and well, I'm trying to make him feel bad. Is he even alive, Henry? Are you alive over there,
Uh-oh.
Henry?
Yeah.
Henry,
I muted myself.
Oh.
I'm here.
my hand's off the board. I'm not touching another thing.
That was purely on me.
All right. Well, now that's on you. You got the mic. What questions you got? See what I did there?
Oh, well played.
Getting good at this.
Well, I just wanted to ask Seth if there's any possibility of a follow-up to the Bray Road Beast documentary, which I really enjoyed.
I mean, I think Rougarou is well, you know what? Like, we had this whole discussion in here this week because Santino has been in here doing color grading on the Trail of Bigfoot. And for those that don't know, Santino is Santino Vitale. He does all of our special effects, and I think he really made a name for himself with Bray Road Beast, because he created the really cool intro and outro with the book, and all the really memorable effects on Bray Road Beast were because of Santino. But Santino basically is the one man handling all of our effects at this point. And so he was in here this week. So we had this whole discussion about the movie, and you know what he said to me, he's an outsider to the paranormal. So he's not a paranormal fan. He is a film fan. He's interested in the stories, but his interest, his passion lies with film.
Now,
So
he's in the On the Trail of Hauntings, though, right?
Yeah. So On the Trail of Hauntings is his series. And he's directing it, editing it, and he's on camera in it, with me. And so all the really ridiculous moments in that series, you have him to thank for. He's a big fan of the cold opens, which is where you get like the cold open with us eating wraps in the car.
It was great.
That was a fun one. But yeah, Santino. So Santino and I had this discussion this week about Rougarou, and he was saying to me, like, I don't know. I can't. He's like, is this a sequel to Bray Road? Because I can't imagine how we're gonna further go into the topic of Dogman, because we've already explored so much of that phenomenon with Bray Road Beast. And I was like, it's funny because to me, I never think of that, and I don't know if that's just because I'm aware of how much ground there still is to cover, and because I'm into this stuff, you know, and maybe he's only sort of aware of like Beast of Jevedon and you know like some of the tentpole aspects of that subject. But I just said I'm not thinking of Rougarou as a sequel to Bray Road, really, but I'm sure it's going to bear some similarities to that film. As for like a direct sequel to Bray Road Beast, I would never close the door on it, mostly because we get almost monthly, I would say, we're getting contact from people who have had some sort of encounter with what they think was the Beast of Bray Road. You know, so there's definitely stories to tell when it comes to the Beast of Bray Road, and it's probably our current. I mean, I would say right now it's currently one of our most popular movies. I would say next to On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Legend. The Bray Road Beast seems to be the one that people are devouring right now. So I wouldn't close the door on it. I don't love sequels. And I can tell you that from making The Mothman Legacy. It's just, for me, it feels odd treading that ground again, like walking back down the same path you've already gone down. Even it adds a whole new set of obstacles to the storytelling process that I was sort of unaware of. And it's different a sequel like On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey, to me is different from something like The Bray Road Beast and Mothman Legacy. And I don't know why that is, but like On the Trail of Bigfoot, it just feels like we could go forever. And it doesn't feel like we're making sequels so much as just continuing a story
Absolutely.
that never had an ending to begin with. So
I agree.
yeah, so there's differences. So the short answer is, in the immediate future, there's no plans for a Bray Road Beast sequel, but I don't think I would be completely closed off to it down the road either. I mean, Linda would have to be heavily involved again too.
Rightfully so. You know, and going back to the whole Rougarou thing, I don't know how many of our watchers or listeners right now understand that the legend of Rougarou in the South, especially through Louisiana and New Orleans, it's big. It's a big thing down there, and it's a feared topic, especially with the diverse culture that goes there. I've been down there. I know that the Rougarou it's just something that a lot of people don't talk about because it's a very feared entity. Whether it's real or not real, it's a very feared topic. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, where our small town for that project is Houma. And Houma, Louisiana is kind of where the Rougarou Festival is every year. It's sort of like in the South. It's about as far south Louisiana as you can go without walking into the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it's way down. And I just booked us like our house where we're staying while we're filming, and it is down on the Gulf. I mean, we're in the bayou down in the Gulf, as far down as you can get. So more than likely, we're all going to get eaten by alligators, and this is the last time any of you will ever talk to me. So can't wait.
Well, at least I got the last one on video.
Yeah.
That'll be worth money.
I did not know there was a Rougarou festival. That's
go.
Fascinating to me. We gotta go. Yeah.
My aunt lives down there. We got a place to stay. Boom, we're going. Yeah.
2 bakers for the price of 1. How do you pass that up? That's a
Rougarou.
Oh boy. Something else there. That James Baker. I think he's drunk. If you look at it. I don't know. This is how we get distracted, folks. This is how a half-hour show turns into an hour and a half because of this. But that's live. We are live tonight, guys. Vance, Henry, across 3 platforms, which is great. Growing our audience here on the Sasquatch Experience, and folks, for as little as $5 a month, you can become Patreon subscribers and get access to ad-free shows. Because after this one's displayed tonight, well, you guys are paying for the rest of them that are ad-free. So it's important for you to know that. But we're giving you a little extra tonight because we bring our good friend Seth Breedlove on here of Small Town Monsters, promoting On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey, and the other projects he's got going on. While we're in the moments of promotion, let's throw a couple more links on here. Social media, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook, Instagram, Squatch Experience, Squatch EXP on Twitter, and report your sightings or encounters, SasquatchExperience.com. Vance, why don't you give me a little reprieve here so I could take a drink?
Well, actually, Seth, I've got one question. But with the entire scope of what you're doing with Bigfoot, are you really going to dedicate anything to each one of the fighting topics? And what I mean by that is you have your group these are interdimensional, or these are actually have cloaking abilities. These creatures have mind speak ability. Are you going to break that down into subcategories at any point? Is that something you've given consideration to?
I don't think so, because what I'm really interested in doing is just finding the people and places that appeal to me. And that's what's going to inform a movie. And I think you're really going to see that with The Journey. What that does, though, is it does open up story opportunities to explore those things. So we definitely delved into like the weirder side of Bigfoot in the first season, especially in The Search, which is episodes 4 through 6. of On the Trail of Bigfoot. I have to stop like referring to On the Trail of Bigfoot season 1 as the season 1, because basically like we put it out episodically. There was this grand experiment with On the Trail of where, you know, the first On the Trail of Champ, On the Trail of Bigfoot, On the Trail of UFOs, all those season 1s were episodic. And then we quickly learned that they don't make money episodically. So you basically either have to create them episodically and then package them as a film, or you just create a film. So we're just doing the film. Everything's interconnected. So technically it's all still episodic, but the fact is you cannot independently distribute that stuff and make enough back to make it feasible to keep doing it. So, so definitely with season 1, with the search, we got into the weirder side of Bigfoot, especially with like Stan Gordon and all that kind of stuff. And I would say the journey does not go into the weirder stuff, but we do get into, like, it opened us up to being able to talk about things like the migratory theory and this idea that maybe, you know, Bigfoot's migrate. I would say that On the Trail of Bigfoot, the journey, if there is sort of a main thrust of that whole film as far as the phenomenon is concerned, it's behavioral. It's a much deeper look at how people theorize Bigfoot might behave as a flesh and blood creature. So, you know, and On the Trail of Bigfoot, the discovery is probably going to be a look at where research stands today and how there's very few groups that are sort of leading the charge when it comes to actually collecting data that is worth anything. And I think, you know, like that's sort of the thrust of that particular film. I had a lot of fun being out with Derek and Shane Corson, even though Shane tried to murder me by marching me up a mountain. And so like I wanted to go back out there and make the movie that I had originally wanted to make before he tried to kill me. And so that's what the discovery is going to be. It's going to be our return to the Olympic, you know, Peninsula. And really we're going to get to go to the nest site. We're going to be actively and as involved as we can. We are going to be getting pretty deep into where the Olympic project stands today, where the research stands, what's going on the Olympic Peninsula, how it's sort of a overlooked part of the country for Bigfoot activity. You know, like when we made Invasion on Chestnut Ridge, and then On the Trail of Bigfoot and On the Trail of UFOs, I keep going back to the Chestnut Ridge area because, I mean, up until more recently, I understand now. I've been told that there's a couple like major networks that are doing shows now in that area. So, you know, so I'll probably step away from it. My job really is to open the network's eyes to interesting areas and people around the country, and then watch them move in and make their own version of what I've already done. And it's a shoddier version of what I've already done anyway, so they can do whatever they want at that point.
You know,
They're like a talent scout.
The talent, yeah. You know, they do the known areas of the Chestnut Ridge, but there are a lot of areas locally around you and in Pennsylvania that have just as much activity that nobody goes to because, well, some of us don't like to, you know, give up those places because they're, you know, pretty well researched places still to this day, and you just don't want to get it all screwed up. Like, I've been to the Chestnut Ridge. I love the Chestnut Ridge. Spend a lot of time there. But you're right. It's become, is it a hot spot now? And you'd actually touch on this in the movie, The Journey, Bigfoot, The Journey. Are they hot spots because they're actually hot spots? Or are they hot spots because we've made them hot spots? And that's becoming a prevalent problem on the East Coast. It really is. That's why I think when you look at an area like the Olympic Peninsula, it's a lot more attractive because, first of all, the average person probably isn't going to go there. And second of all, it's not as easy to get to, right?
Yeah. And it's, you know, I mean, in the United States, that's like, to me, that's the tip of the iceberg. It's where it's, I mean, it is a crazy place to visit because you're so far up. It's like you're on the last frontier of the U.S. in a lot of ways. I mean, that's how it feels anyway. So I'm just excited to actually get back out there. And we're doing, like, basically the way that trip is lined up. It's the Olympic Project's film to me, But the first 3 days we're out there, it's me and my crew, and we're basically going to be doing a full circle of the Olympic National Park. So we're going to start sort of in the south. We're going to drive out toward the coast, and we're going to stay 2 nights up on the top of the coast, and then we're going to drive back inland. And it's I think when it's all done, it's going to be, I mean, if the journey is visually the most, I would say the journey is probably the most any film has ever shown of the Adirondacks, Bigfoot related or not. I'm aware of other Adirondack movies. I don't know that any have shown the scope that we show in the journey. I don't think that any have gone to the lengths that we went to really show the size and scale of the park. I think the discovery is going to be the same for the Olympic Peninsula.
No, I agree. And actually, a lot of the things I love about the Small Town Monsters films is you put a lot of effort into the scenic shots. Like, you really take the viewer to the place with these shots, man. And actually, there's this one in the journey where I thought you were going to fall over. You're on that rock cropping. I thought you were going to fall down to your death. I was like, that I could never do that. I would, the vertigo would kill me. And it's
you mean the Mount Hadley up on Hadley? Yeah, that was an amazing location. That the shot in that movie that I can't wait for people to see is the shot of Mount Marcy, which is sort of the centerpiece to me of the whole film. It's a 40-second long continuous helicopter shot circling Mount Marcy from a helicopter, and I was literally hanging out of a helicopter with a gimbal in my hand getting that shot. And it's a crazy. The helicopter, first of all, is like one of these little like kit helicopters. I'd never been on a helicopter. I'm not good with, I usually get airsick, but I had managed to like hold off on really wanting to puke until around this point. Like until around that point where he started, because he's doing these like figure eights around the tops of these mountains, and that was where I finally was like, all right, I'm gonna spew like out the door of this helicopter. But I was literally like, I was hanging out. I had my little like handheld gimbal, and I'm shooting that shot. And I mean, like a big budget network, what they would do is they'd have a gimbal mounted to the bottom of the helicopter and a kit, that would surround it. I mean, we don't have that kind of money. So literally, like, he's doing this crazy aerial maneuver around Mount Marcy. The helicopter's on like an angle like this, and I'm hanging out the window with this gimbal, like getting this shot as we're going around it. And I was like, man, if I fall to my death right now, it's going to be one heck of a view going down.
And you did it all for us.
What's that?
You did it all for us.
Yeah, the entire time the 4 of you were in my mind as I was flying around Mount Marcy. But yeah, there's that shot, and then there's one that's in the movie, but it happens so briefly. I don't know that people will really catch how crazy it is. But one of those shots is actually like the helicopter shots. The pilot went down the side of one of the mountains, and in that situation, he's like leaning this way again. So again, I'm like hanging out, but he was like going backwards or something. And so the shot looks insane when you see it on camera, because you're just like seeing the landscape looks like, it looks like the world is tilted on its axis when you're watching it, and like everything's being thrown off kilter. But there's a lot of like moments in that movie that I don't know if I hope people get the full scope of what we managed to do with a crew that was, probably very much unprepared for what we were in for. Like, Andy Matsky, who's 17 years old, was, in a lot of ways, he was my director of photography, because it was really only him and I that had cameras running all the time. So it was a movie that's shot by myself and a 17-year-old kid. And then Alexander Pedikov shot with the FS7, but that didn't come into play until Whitehall Day. And then sort of afterward, he continued shooting on and off throughout the trip too. And I don't want to downplay all the stuff that Alex contributed to the project, because it was a lot. But I would say, 70%, 80% of the shooting was done by Andy and myself, and then Alex was thankfully there to pick up the slack. And we're out there filming pretty much nonstop. I mean, we came home with 3,000 some B-roll shots, or total, 3,000 some shots, probably around 30, 35 hours worth of footage. And I just think the Adirondacks haven't been portrayed on camera. And that's something that always has stood out to me, having been there a few times. That always stood out to me, that area needed to be shown. And it's brought up constantly in the film, the size and scale and scope of the park. People do not understand how big 6 million acres is when you say 6 million acres.
Well,
and
you're right. National Geographic blew it. They've done a couple episodes out there with, Steve Coles and a few others, History Channel, but they never talk about it. And I think that's where you, again, bring a little bit more to the story, more context about these areas, because there is a lot more than just, it's not a neighborhood backyard patch of woodland.
Yeah. Yeah. Vance is done, man. He's sick of listening to me talk. He's just out. He's out.
Normally it's vice versa. Normally the guest leaves.
But I will. I think a sense of place has always been a big part of what we do. And as we put more money into the travel side of our films, I think you'll see more of this, really these more comprehensive looks at the locations where we're filming. Because the one thing I think I've started to learn is when to put money into effects and when to put money into the travel side of it, and how to hit that perfect balance between the two. A film like On the Trail of Bigfoot, any of the On the Trail ofs, really, they shouldn't be front loaded with effects. The idea behind the series was not to have any effects. Now UFOs kind of threw that out the door, but Bigfoot and Champ aren't exactly loaded with special effects. I mean, the effect and the production value in those projects is supposed to come from the locations where we're shooting.
Welcome back, Vance.
Well, thanks. I had to get a beverage.
Yeah,
I was parched.
Right.
We were talking about the Adirondacks and how actually Seth took the time to show them and explain them.
Yes.
And how they're
right.
not.
No.
Okay,
I
just
heard
make
all
sure I was
that.
catching you up, because.
No. Well, we're on top of that
right.
one.
I'm just making sure. Taking time out of his busy
One
schedule.
of the few places I have not gone to yet. I have not been through the
Very
Adirondacks.
pretty country.
I know they make nice chairs, but
I hate those chairs, man.
yeah, I do too. Actually, they are not comfortable.
Don't you get us canceled, Vance?
No, we won't. No, we won't.
Those chairs aren't that bad.
So you're going out to the Olympic Peninsula. Then what? Are you going to hold off on? I'm asking you to go really forward here. I want the whole damn story. That's what I want. I want Seth Breedlove to line up On the Trail of Bigfoot for me, so I know what's coming.
Oh, you mean beyond that?
Yeah. What are you doing?
So the problem is we have so many options. So the thing that was supposed to happen in 2020 was actually supposed to be On the Trail of Bigfoot, the journey. And then in August, we were supposed to do a boat expedition up the coast into BC with Stephen Major. And we were going to call it On the Trail of Bigfoot the origin. And it's still going to happen. It might, the hope is that that's probably happening next summer, 2022. I don't know if that'll be the next On the Trail of Bigfoot after Discovery, but that's definitely one that we're going to do. The other thing we really want to, the thing we have to keep in mind is this year, we're putting out 2 On the Trail of Bigfoot. Both of them are taking us back to someplace we've already been.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's cool. I wanted to tell both these stories, but I also don't want to just keep revisiting places we've already gone and interviewing researchers and investigators who we've already talked to, because there's so many out there who deserve to tell their story, to be able to tell their story the way they want it told. So we want to do this origin thing because it gets into some aspects to the subject that we haven't explored before, going to some places we haven't gone before. But I do want to, at some point, return to Fouke and go back to Boggy Creek and take my crew, all of us that survived it the first time, and this time, instead of staying in a hotel in suites, which is what we had to do the last time, I want to put us in the woods, and stay overnight out in the thick of it, and actually go look for Bigfoot. When we made Boggy Creek Monster, we didn't give a crap if we had seen Bigfoot run across the street. I don't think any of us would have cared at that point, because we were just desperately trying to get that movie made. And so I'd like to go back and do that trip again, and this time really get out and go see if we can find something. On the Trail of offers us that opportunity to get out into the woods and actually, spend some time trying to find evidence of something. And I always feel like if there's a place where I'm most likely to see Bigfoot, it's probably Fouke. That's just my read on it.
I don't know. I'm agnostic.
Yeah.
I would hope so, but I don't know.
Oh, listen to you.
I am. I'm just being honest.
Agnostic.
I am. I don't know. Again,
You know what, Seth?
It's a hot spot, or is it a hot spot because we created it? That's a
Well,
question.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about it isn't about the history of the place. The history is interesting, but I don't think the history is any more standout than the Adirondacks, or than the Chestnut Ridge, or than Minerva, Ohio. But
Man.
it's when you go to the place, and how friggin' rural and rugged it is back in there. That's what, you just go to that place, and there's probably no basis in reality in that line of thinking. It's just, if you're going to see a Bigfoot, it seems like it should take place there.
There's a lot of things that can actually kill you too. I mean, that's not
that's
even
true.
any hyperbole. There's a lot of things there that are dangerous and poisonous, and if they have an opportunity, will bite you and kill you. It's a little different in Pennsylvania, a little different in New York, right? Climate's different. A lot of things can happen. You could step in something and sink and die in the swamps in those areas. Not a lot of swamps of that caliber up north. So, I mean, understand ambiance wise, environmental wise, I get it. Reality wise, Vance, I don't know.
I'm gonna spill the beans here from what we talked about in pre-show production here with Seth. Look, Texas and Louisiana is right now currently facing record snowfall that they haven't seen in 30 years. I'm wondering what kind of footprints are going to be shown through, the Sam Houston area. If there's going to be anybody out and about that may come across a little bit more visible tracks of anything that might be down in our southern states, so to speak. I mean, this is unprecedented for what's happening to them right now as far as snowfall coverage to the woods. So it's possible, but I don't want to start that ball rolling with those running out there going, hey, that's a great idea. Let's mock up some footprint. Yeah, I understand that it's too late, but now might be something that will come to the forefront that nobody else is really thinking about. Hopefully, nobody will take advantage of a situation like that and make a mockery of it, but there may be some evidence that comes forth, at least track wise. I don't know. It was just a thought that I had this evening.
Fair enough thought, but you just created it. I'm just telling you. You've created it. So thanks, Vance. You've put the thoughts in people's heads, and tomorrow BFRO is going to have 14 reports on their. I just picked on the BFRO. That's
I know. And Moneymaker will be like, nope, it's definitely a Bigfoot.
Hey, it might be. You never know. These things happen. Seth, you talked about Stephen Major there for a second. I watched the Port Chatham Harryman documentary, and I liked it. It was really scenic and very remote. Have you considered going that route with Stephen for a video or a documentary?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if we do BC. So yeah, I mean, Alaska is going to happen too. And that could very well be the other movie that gets made next year. Maybe even later this year. I mean, Larry Beans Baxter is up there, and he's a good buddy of mine. So I'd like to do something that I could get him involved with. Larry's actually gone out Bigfooting with me in Cuyahoga Valley National Park. So yeah, he's a good guy, and I've been wanting to do something with him for a long time. So Alaska is definitely a possibility. And when I was a kid, Alaska was my dream place. I don't know why I was obsessed as a kid with Alaska. I did book reports on it and watched documentaries and stuff. So it's a natural that at some point I'm going to end up there. So yeah, I would love to do that. And I agree with you. I think that documentary is really, I said before, there's a movie called In Search of Bigfoot from the 70s. It's Robert W. Morgan walking around Mount St. Helens, finding literally nothing and getting chased off the mountain by a forest fire. And it's like one of my, if not my favorite Bigfoot documentaries. And the Port Chatham Hairy Man thing really reminded me of that. You know, like the reality is, like, there is a futility to this that most films or most TV shows shy away from showing. And I always appreciated the fact that In Search of Bigfoot movie really showed the lack of activity that you encounter when you're out trying to make a documentary about looking for Bigfoot. And Port Chatham is like that, in that I don't think they're trying to play up anything. And I think the journey is like that too. It kind of shows I don't want to get too deep into it because of spoilers, but I think definitely there's parts in our movie that shows you the futility of running around, and even though it seems completely futile, there's a lot to be gained from doing that. Yeah. Separated from Bigfoot.
No, and I'm glad you bring that up in the documentary, because nobody talks about it. I mean, we have for the last, Henry, 15 years talked about how boring Sasquatching, Bigfooting really is. And over the period of time, the 25 years I've done this, a handful of experiences, right? That in itself is very rare. I look into the camera now and still tell folks it's a very boring endeavor, and you have to have a lot of patience because it is. Now, does that mean every instance is going to be boring? No, there are some exciting times, but like you point out, how many hundreds of hours have you spent filming for these documentaries? I've been with you on just one part of On the Trail of UFOs, one episode, right? And how much was left on the floor just from that? Like, when you have so much of this footage, you could paint a picture on itself just by that small amount of time you've done it, how much nothing's happened compared to the moment something did happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, when you get into the amount of time I've spent making movies with nothing happen, it's embarrassing. We get asked, I mean, the most common question we're asked is like, what's the weirdest thing that's happened to you while filming? And I mean, my answer is like, well, I mean, Aaron got covered in tiny ticks that were smaller than poppy seeds this summer. Like, that is pretty freaking weird. That's not the answer they're looking for. Like, we don't have wild amounts of activity occur when we're doing this stuff. And you would think, since we're out in these places that are so tied into activities, there's so many of these hotspots, that we would have more strange stuff happen. But yeah, it's
not how it works.
Yeah, it's not how it works.
It's funny you say that, because I've been asked that question a lot. What's the scariest thing that you've run into in the woods? And me, it's rattlesnakes and ticks. I don't like either. That's what I'm most afraid of in the woods too. Snakes. Right. You will have to carry me out of the woods. I don't do them. I don't like them.
I don't know if I could.
What, carry me out of the? No, you couldn't. You would be dead. But I would thank you for the attempt, as you're getting gnawed to death by something or bitten to death, as I escape. Because trust me, this fat guy can run. Okay, I got some speed.
Yeah, you know what? I learned that. Walking with you walk faster than I do, and I'm about twice your height. So I don't know how that happens, but
I cover
physics
a lot of
are strange. Yeah, you do. Yes, you do.
You got to at these festivals. First of all, it's the only time I get to see Seth most of the time is at these festivals, conferences, and I haven't been to one in the last year. We didn't do anything. I didn't go
No.
anywhere.
Have I seen you? When did we see? Was it UFOs?
Mothman.
Yeah. No, was Mothman before or after UFOs? I think UFOs was after Mothman. That might be the last time, because I haven't done anything in the public realm of the field, and I'm just waiting for the next kind of event to pop up. You might have the inside scoop on that. I don't. I think Mothman this year might be my first outing to an event.
Hey, Seth, you brought up Mark earlier.
Mhm.
Why don't you give him a shout out for what he's doing?
Oh,
with
we love
his,
Mark.
behind the microphone stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Mark does Monster Study Group, which is his other podcast. He also just did, like, I think he's doing something with Monster Kid Radio. I see that a lot popping up. His son Andy's doing a show based in Ohio that I can't remember what it's called, which Andy will call me out for this if he somehow sees this. Hopefully he doesn't see this. But I mean, Mark narrated the director's cut of Beast of Whitehall, which is available free on YouTube right now if you haven't seen it yet. We did a director's cut and redid the narration with Mark narrating the whole film. And yeah, Mark's busy this year. He's working on he's writing our On the Trail of companion book, which is much more about the topics of the films or the projects in the On the Trail of series, rather than it is like some sort of behind the scenes, project. That was cool.
Is that you, Vance?
But yeah, he's busy. He's always busy, but my goal is to make him busier this year than he's ever been in his life. So I mean, he's got enough going on with his congregation. I'm sure he doesn't need me constantly throwing STM work at him, but this year it's going to be a busy year.
Yeah, Mark's wonderful. I think he adds a certain character to the production. He's just an all-around good dude.
Yes,
too.
he is. Right.
We need more Mark Madskys in the field, that's for sure. More people that kind of really embrace and care about the craft and the history of it. And that's another point I don't think we touched on a lot, and we won't go too much into this because our time's expiring tonight. But you do a great job kind of preserving the history of all this stuff for us, Seth. So we have to say thank you and wish you only the best for the future of Small Town Monsters and all these projects you got going on this year. Kickstarter's still going on, right? Where can the listeners go and give you their money?
Yeah, Kickstarter runs through March 4th. And I'll be honest, if you're watching this right now and you back, I have not pulled the names for On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey credits. So if you back, basically, if the original disclaimer we put out was that if you backed after today, you were not going to be able to get your name in the credits for On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey. All the other credits were still going to be open, but this one we're actually sending off. Because of this massive snowstorm, we haven't even finished the color grade for On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Journey yet. So I haven't pulled the names for the credits yet. So if you want your name in the credits for that one, it's not too late. If you back like tonight, I can throw those in. But yeah, it runs through March 4th, and we are well on our way to our next our next stretch goal, which will be if we reach the final stretch goal, which is 80K, we're going to put out the entire first season of Case Files on DVD just for backers, and it's going to include the unreleased Kecksburg episode, which is, it's in all honesty, this is an unreleased episode because it hasn't been made yet. Like, we have the interviews for it, but we haven't made it. And so, like, what we're going to do is we're going to edit it all. It's probably going to be a longer episode, like 20 minutes, which is long for Case Files because those were more like 8 to 10. So this will include that episode, and it does have like an original interview shot just for that. So anyway, if we can reach all those stretch goals, we'll be able to add that in. And I'm really excited about getting that out there. And honestly, we had such a huge 2 days that I think we're going to hit it. I told Adrian when we decided on this, I was like, we need to pick a stretch goal that's like pretty, like we're going to have to actually stretch to hit it, but that's not going to be impossible. And then I set it at what I set it at and launched and like made the announcement and then immediately regretted it. I was like, this was too far. Like we probably put it way too far. And then almost immediately,
right,
we had someone back at like a full scale executive producer package. And then we jumped up, we had like 2 or 3 people back at over $500. And it all of a sudden it was back up to like, I mean, we're already within like $6,000 or $7,000 or something of that third stretch goal, like almost immediately. So at this rate, we're going to have to add a 4th stretch goal.
Well, you know, Henry, you haven't been to any conferences or anything for a while. And the best part is Seth ships to you. So open that visa and get some money down to Seth there, young man. You know, you don't have to travel with it. You don't have to take it through customs or baggage. It goes right to you, my friend. See, look at him. He's shaking his head.
Yeah, nothing but silence.
Put him on the spot like this. I feel bad.
I have no shame. Don't feel bad. I had to take this guy to the airport after an Ohio Bigfoot conference. Okay, I had to get new tires afterwards.
Oh, okay. Listen to you.
Loaded that thing up. I carried his duffel bag in there, and I became a hunchback for a week. Just so you know that. It was terrible. I'm sorry, Henry. I can't help it. I love you, buddy. Look at you down there smiling. Folks,
hey,
that's
Seth.
all we got. Hey,
okay.
Vance
no, I was just going to say one last thing. Just throw it out there real quick. Is the family good? Everything's good?
Oh, yeah. We're well, I mean, we got family troubles like everyone else does. But as far as like my little corner of the world, we're doing good. We're actually like in the middle of my nephews came over when we found out this blizzard was going to hit, because we've been attempting to build this snow mountain in my backyard for months. So we're finally getting enough snow that we could do it. So we spent most of our day out in the yard building the snow fort. Nice. And now we're doing a sleepover at STM HQ with my nephews and my son. So this is our wild night. They're in the next room in what's supposed to be the Small Town Monster screening room. They're watching Stinky and Dirty on the big screen with the big projector, and then we're gonna crash on an air mattress and couches and floor sleeping bags. So we're doing good though.
Good.
Wonderful.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Everybody, Seth. Thanks for where can folks find out more about you and your films?
Smalltownmonsters.com is probably the best place to go. Or you can just Google search, why is Seth Breedlove such a piece of garbage?
I don't know. I might have been the heel tonight. I've been kind of mean. But anyhow, folks, thanks for watching, listening. I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker, Vance Nesbitt, Henry May, James Baker fell off the face of the planet, but he's trolling on Facebook with our friend Seth Breedlove. Folks, to find out more about us, go to SasquatchExperience.com, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram, Squatch EXP on Twitter. Henry, where can folks find you?
I'm on Facebook, Henry B. May the 4th.
That's him. Vance?
Well, you can always find me sitting right here or out on the road, but Vance A. Nesbitt on Facebook, or Vance_A_Nesbitt on wow. I get so much interference.
Yeah, you got a win
on Instagram. I don't know. Must be popular or something. I don't know. This is just so unprofessional.
It is. Special thanks to our executive producers, Tom Yock and Brian Corbin. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Supporting the show. Folks, I'm Sean Forker. You can find me everywhere at Sean Forker on all social media. Henry, give them the line.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
Keep on squatching, folks. We'll see you next week.